If you knew how something would turn out before you did it, do you think it might change the choices you make in life? Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Kira Wackett. Thanks for joining me for another video as we work to empower and equip you with the confidence and skills to write your own story so that you can live a life on purpose. Today, we're going to talk about the concepts of play it through to the end, or more simply, how to pause and think about how a situation might play out before we take action to act with greater clarity and intention. When we're feeling overwhelmed or burdened with a sense of pressure or urgency, we can make impulsive decisions and moves in our lives. We say yes to things we don't want to say yes to, take on responsibilities or opportunities without waiting to see if something else arises, and make choices that can lead to long-term distress and consequences. Why do we do this? Because we're programmed to avoid discomfort, whether that be the fear of someone being mad at us or letting them down, the sensation of physical pain or emotional longing, or the activation of our shame stories. It becomes a form of avoidance, even though it feels like in the moment we're doing something. We're moving forward, we're solving the issue at hand. I often refer to this with clients as avoidant goal setting, or the anywhere but here mentality. We're just looking for a solution, any solution that gets us out of the present circumstances without knowing if it best aligns with what we want or need. And it's often founded on a position of shame. We say yes to taking on a project we don't have time for rather than discussing scope and shifting our current task list to make this work. We take jobs or significant steps in relationships because it's what we should do or it's what we should want, right? We see that it would make others happy, and when we feel a sense of indifference, we'll often default to this. We might let someone else pick the music or a restaurant because it just seems easier to defer to a majority or allow someone else the control. We see a notification for an email and allow it to pull us back into work rather than spending time with our loved ones. Or we go for the extra cup of coffee to keep working rather than checking in with why we're so tired or giving ourselves space to rest. We look for what I call band-aids to provide temporary relief and remove distress from the line of view. In many cases, this leads people to get stuck in a cycle of solution chasing, moving the needle from one pain point to another and eroding our ability to deal with distress and discomfort effectively and set boundaries and make choices in line with our values, wants, and needs. So how do we stop ourselves from making those choices out of fear, avoidance, and shame? Well, we need to get clear on just when we're doing it and why. You can't stop doing something that you don't fully understand how, why, and when you're doing it. So the way that I do this is through a technique called play it through to the end, where we focus on gaining clarity around the why and the effect of a particular choice or thought. The first step is to pause before making a choice. To reflect on the why and impact means we have to create the space to actually do so. So when you feel pressured to choose or respond, take a break or a pause. Go for a walk, ask to circle back or follow up later. If you're talking to someone else, you could say something like, I want to take some time to consider this. I'll get back to you tomorrow with my thoughts. Or more simply, you could just say, let me get back to you. In an interview Amy Poehler did on Dax Shepard's Armchair Expert podcast, she talked about saying, let me think about that in situations like these. Not just as a way of setting an expectation for others, but to invite herself to actually think about whatever the ask, case, or experience is. No matter the circumstances, I want you to consider the pause at a minimum to be 3 deep breaths before responding, and give yourself space to think about the ask in its full context. Once you've taken this pause or made space for it, now you can reflect. In this part, there are 2 key questions to consider. First, think about why. Why are you saying yes? Why are you making this choice? What role are shoulds and shame playing in the decision-making process? Are you saying yes because it's what you want or because it's easier? Are you eroding this boundary because it no longer serves you or because you feel like you should so that people won't be mad at you? Are you making this choice because of internalized biases that you have that say this is the only option for you? Or what's the point in trying to do anything different? Is this in line with your values or a way to avoid pain? Second, think about the effect. What are the dominoes that fall as a result of this choice? What's the short-term and long-term impact of making this choice? And consider it both in the context of the presenting circumstances and how it extends to other areas in your life. Sure, saying yes to that person and taking on a project you don't have time for now might not be too overwhelming, but what's the long-term dynamic that gets created? How might this make it easier to erode other boundaries or say yes to others in your life? Going along with someone else's opinion or not sharing your opinion might not be that big of a deal at that moment. What's the consequence of a lifetime of silencing your voice? I'm not talking about hard things may feel easier now, but what messages does that send to your body over time? How do you begin to think about conflict or tension? And in what ways does it impact future interactions where tensions may arise? What's the message we send to ourselves and the world by taking this path? And how might the dominoes fall different if we made another choice? Perhaps saying no would mean a higher level of distress in the short term, but would it allow boundary setting to occur more easily in the future? Not having that extra cup of coffee might mean you're feeling really sluggish today, but does it give you information that might make you change your nighttime routine or reconsider your sleep hygiene practices? Once you've taken the time to reflect on these pieces, you can decide with greater clarity and understanding what you want to do. In some cases, this distance created in the pause and reflection might be enough to change course and direction in your response. And in some cases, it may not. The choice might still be the avoidant solution. You might say, this seems unhelpful, and I'm still going to do it. Or I know this isn't maybe the right choice for me, but it's the one I'm making. Either outcome is still a win. It's not reasonable to assume that insight automatically leads to action. In fact, these are two separate processes. The goal of this technique is in the insight building phase. It's about creating awareness of the thought and behavior patterns we engage in to build buy-in for future action. So be kind to yourself in these moments. Set reasonable expectations and focus on creating mindful gaps between that stressor or request and our response, so that as we build up more of our awareness, we can start to slowly shift to making the choices that align more with what we want to do. So now it's your turn. What's one thing you're going to take away from this episode and you can start to apply in your daily life? What's the next 1% change for you? And as you all know, writing things down and sharing them out loud is one of the best ways to increase our buy-in and reinforce the work we're doing. So leave a comment below with your takeaways, next steps, and of course, questions or ideas you have for me so that I can best support you in your journey to living on purpose. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe so that you can get an alert every time new content is uploaded rather than having to come back and check all the time. If you really want to get involved in everything that I'm doing at Adversity Rising, click the link in the show notes to sign up for my email list, where you'll get exclusive content that I don't share anywhere else, and also get updates on any new videos, blog posts, or other content that I've released so that you can have first access or an easy way to get to them. This is not an easy task. Slowing down our brain to get to the point where we pause and consider other options rather than take that path of avoidance or least resistance is a really hard concept. Be kind and go slow with yourself. Remember, the invitation here is just to start to build some of that insight so that we can build capacity to pivot and make choices in the future that really align with how we want to show up. I'm here to help and support you in any way I can, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.